The storm came in mean, like it had a bill to collect. I'd been driving back roads for 2 hours, following some phone app that promised me a shortcut. I should have known better. Anytime a machine tells you it's found a faster way through the middle of nowhere, what it's really done is find you a real nice spot to die in private. The rain started soft. By the time the trees started bending sideways like they were trying to duck out of the way of something, it had turned into the kind of storm you tell your grandkids about, assuming you live long enough to have grandkids. Then my engine quit on me. And I want to say that real slow so it sinks in the way it sank into me. It didn't sputter. It didn't cough. It just up and died. The way a man dies when his heart flat out decides it's done arguing with him. No lights, no click, nothing. I coasted onto the shoulder in a dark so complete I couldn't see my own hands on the wheel, and I sat there a full minute just breathing, on account of my heart was trying to punch a hole clean through my chest. I turned the key a few more times, more out of stubbornness than hope. Same as a man'll keep mashing an elevator button after it already told him no. "Well," I said, to nobody in particular, "ain't that just about the most horseshit thing that's ever happened to me? And I once got food poisoning at my own wedding." I got my jacket from the back seat, pulled the hood up, and stepped out into weather that had personal opinions about my continued existence. Cold hit first, then wet, then wind. All three of them elbowing each other for the honor of making my night worse. I turned in a slow circle, squinting through rain that felt like it had been thrown at me on purpose. And that's when I saw it, up on the hill. A roofline, angled and wrong. A window that caught one flicker of lightning and blinked at me like a dead man's eye. A house. Didn't think twice. Wish I had. That climb was mud and briars and my own sorry gasping. And twice I went down on one knee, cussing a blue streak that would have made my grandmother reach for the soap and a switch, both. Third time I went down, I just laid there a second in the mud, laughing at myself. On account of a man's gotta find something funny about his own situation, or he'll flat out lose his mind. Here I was, 30-some years old, crawling up a haunted-looking hill in a thunderstorm like a dumbass in a Halloween costume. And the worst part was, there weren't even any candy at the end of it. But the alternative was freezing to death next to a Buick that had given up on life, same as my ex-wife's opinion of me. So, up I went, one stupid step at a time. The house was old. Not just old like your uncle's fishing cabin. Old like it had outlived every single person who ever had a kind word for it. Paint peeled off in long strips, gray as a corpse. One shutter hung by a single nail, banging in the wind like something out there was knocking politely, trying not to be rude about wanting in. Porch boards groaned soft and spongy under my boots. The kind of soft that tells you the wood's been rotting from the inside for longer than you've been alive. I knocked. "Hello? Anybody home?" Car died. I ain't looking for trouble. Just somewhere dry to wait out God's temper. And maybe a cup of coffee if you're the neighborly type. Nothing answered but the storm, howling through the tree line like it had lost something back there and was furious about it. I stood there a second longer, dripping, feeling like a man selling encyclopedias nobody wanted. "Suit yourself," I muttered, coming in anyway. I tried the handle. It turned easy, which should have told me something. Doors that open easy in houses that look like that are usually doors that want you to come in. I stepped inside, and the dark in there felt thicker than the dark outside, if that makes any sense. Air smelled like wet plaster and something underneath it. Something sour, like a refrigerator that quit working around the same time as the Nixon administration. I clicked on my phone light and swept it across a front room, stripped bare as a skeleton. No furniture, just dust, water stains, and wallpaper peeling off the walls, like the house was shedding its own skin. "Hello?" I called again, quieter. Some part of my brain had already figured nobody was going to answer, and some other part of my brain wasn't real thrilled about being loud in a place like this. I found a stairwell, a hall, 3 bedrooms with nothing in them but broken glass and mildew. No photos, no beds, nothing that said a family had ever lived a single day of their lives there. Less like an abandoned home and more like a building that had been dressed up to look like one, the way a hunter dresses up in camo to look like a bush. Downstairs, I found a fireplace, thank the Lord and baby Jesus, and enough dry wood in a busted crate that I figured I could get a fire going once my hands quit shaking enough to strike a match. I peeled off my soaked jacket, wrung it out over the hearth, muttering the whole time about apps and shortcuts and the specific flavor of dumbass who trusts either one. "Fastest route my ass," I said to the empty room. "I ought to leave that app a 1-star review, assuming I live long enough to get bars again." That's when I noticed the door in the kitchen corner, half hid behind a fallen support beam, a door to a basement. Now, I've watched enough scary movies to know that a basement door in a house like this is about as good an idea as a screen door on a submarine. But I was cold and stupid and hoping there might be a generator down there, or at least a dry blanket that didn't smell like something died in it. So I moved the beam and the door groaned open onto a stairwell, dropping into pure black. "If there's a body down there," I said out loud, mostly to hear my own voice, "I'd appreciate you keeping it to yourself." Nobody answered that either. Yet. The stairwell was brick on both sides, damp, streaked with something dark I decided not to think too hard about. Each step down felt colder than the last, and my breath started fogging in front of the flashlight beam, which made no kind of sense, seeing as it was the middle of July. I've been cold before. I've never been cold like that. That was a cold with intention behind it. And behind it, something was crying. I froze on the bottom step, and every hair I own stood straight up at attention. The sound started low, a wet kind of moaning. The sound a man makes when he's cried so long his throat's given up the fight. Then it sharpened into words. "Please." A man's voice, cracked and raw, like it hadn't spoken years and was relearning how, one syllable at a time. "Please, is someone there? God, please, tell me someone's there." I should have turned around right then. I want that on the record. Some deep, sensible part of me was hollering that nothing good hides behind 3 bolted locks and a 4th left open like a trap set and sprung. But there's another part of a man, the part your mama raised, that can't just walk off from a voice begging like that. So I didn't run. I did the dumber thing. I answered. "Hello?" I said.
"Oh, thank God."
The voice cracked wide open into something like a sob.
"Thank God, somebody finally came. Please, sir, you gotta let me out. I don't even know how long I've been down here. Please, I'm begging you."
I took a step closer, and the cold coming off that door had a different flavor to it than the rest of the basement. Heavier, like walking into a meat locker that had opinions about you personally. "How'd you end up locked in there?" I asked, on account of I was raised polite, even when talking to doors. A pause, just a hair too long.
"My brother locked me up down here, said I was sick, said I was dangerous. He's not right in the head himself, never has been, and he just left me down here to rot. I haven't eaten in days, sir. I can feel myself dying.
I put my hand flat on that cold metal door. The bolts were thick, industrial. You don't buy hardware like that to keep out raccoons. You buy it to keep in something that badly wants to leave. "Well," I said, "I reckon I'm gonna look around a little first before I go unlocking doors in a stranger's basement. No offense."
No, wait, please don't go, please.
But I was already backing toward the stairs. On account of my gut, it started hollering louder than my manners. And I've lived long enough to know you always listen to your gut, even when it's rude about interrupting. Back upstairs, I got the fire going, hands finally steady enough to strike a match on the third try. An orange light spread across that bare room while I sat there, dripping and shivering, staring at the basement door I'd left cracked, listening to that voice drift up through the floorboards, still begging, still pleading, over and over. And after a while, it started to sound less like a man in pain and more like a song stuck skipping on the same 3 notes. That's when I found the journal, wedged behind a loose brick by the fireplace, leather cover swollen and split from water damage. I about missed it, but firelight caught the edge of the pages, and something told me to pull it free. Handwriting inside was frantic. Small, cramped, pressed so hard into the paper some pages had torn clean through. I settled in by the fire and read, and the deeper I got, the colder that basement air felt reaching up through my boots. It ain't my brother. I don't have a brother. I don't know why I keep saying that. 3 days now since I found the crack in the cellar wall. 3 days since I first heard it whispering. And pulling that brick loose was the worst decision I ever made in my whole sorry life. It don't have a shape. Not really. When I put my light on it, I saw something that looked almost human for half a second. And then it just wasn't anymore. Wrong in a way I ain't got the words for. It talks now. Learned my voice already. God help me. Learned it off my own screaming. Tells me things, knows things about my life I never told a soul. My mama's name, the scar on my knee from when I was 9 falling out of the Henderson's oak tree. It's been listening to more than my hollering. I think it's been listening to my thinking. I bolted that door myself, 3 locks, and I'm fixing to add a 4th tomorrow if I live that long. I ain't doing this to save myself. I'm doing it to protect whoever finds this house after me. If you're reading this and you hear a voice behind that door, do not open it. Do not listen to one single word it says. It ain't a man. It ain't anybody's brother. It's something that's been waiting in the dark a long, long time for somebody dumb enough or kind enough to let it out. The last entry was smeared, ink running like it got wet, or like whoever wrote it had been crying too hard to keep his hand steady. It knows I'm writing this, telling me to stop, telling me it never lied to me once, telling me I'm the sick one, always have been, and ain't nobody coming, and I ought to just let it out so it can prove it don't mean me no harm. I won't. I won't. I won't. I closed that journal with hands gone numb, and it wasn't from the cold no more. The voice from the basement had gone quiet. That silence sat worse on me than the crying ever did. I waited by the fire, journal in my lap, listening so hard my own ears started ringing. And after about 5 minutes, the voice came back up through the floor, low and even now. All that desperate cracking smoothed clean out of it.
You found his little book.
I didn't answer. My whole body had locked up tighter than a jar lid.
He was sick, paranoid. Alone too long in a house like this will do that to a man. He began hearing things that were not there, started believing things that were not true. I never laid a hand on him, never hurt him once. I was just a poor man his own family locked away because they got scared of what he might turn into. And when they finally let me loose, I'm the one who found him down here, half-starved, writing stories about me in a leather book because his mind had already come apart at the seams.
Lord, it was good. I'll give it that much credit. It had a voice like a preacher who also sold used cars, warm and reasonable and just a little too eager to shake your hand. If I hadn't just read 3 pages of a dying man's handwriting, getting worse and worse, more frantic, more torn up, right to the very last legible word, I might have bought it whole. You got a hell of a way with words for a fellow who's supposedly been starving to death, I said. Most men, 3 days without a meal, ain't running a debate club. It actually chuckled at that. A real chuckle. Low and pleased, like I'd told a decent joke at a dinner party.
I like you. You got some spirit in you. I respect that.
You're lying, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I felt entitled to.
Am I? Or is it just easier to believe the crazy man's diary than the man begging you kindly for help? You don't know me. You don't know him. All you have is paper and ink from a man who might have been dangerous, and a voice on the other side of a door that's done nothing this whole time but ask you politely to let him go.
I stood up. My legs felt about as steady as a 3-legged dog on ice, but I made myself walk toward the basement stairs, journal still gripped in one hand like it might protect me, which, looking back, was a fool's bet. Then tell me your name, I called down into the dark. You got a family? A brother? A life before this house? Tell me your name. Silence.
Does it matter? A name's just a word, friend. What matters is I'm suffering down here, and you got the power to end it. And every second you stand up there deciding, you're choosing to let a man rot in the dark. Does that seem like Christian behavior to you?
That ain't an answer, and you know it.
It's more of an answer than that book gave you. He never wrote my name either. Ask yourself why. Ask yourself if maybe he never knew my name. Maybe I was never anything more to him than a shape he was too scared to look at.
You're real slick, I'll give you that. You ought to be selling timeshares, not sitting in a basement.
Funny you say that. I have sold a few in my time, way, way back. Different name, different face, same pitch, more or less.
I stood at the top of them stairs a long while, fire crackling behind me, rain hammering the roof like it had a grudge that predated my birth. Somewhere out there, my dead car sat useless on a road that led nowhere I wanted to be. I want to tell you I was smart about it. Want to tell you I turned around, went back to the fire, and waited out the storm like a sensible man. That ain't what happened, and I ain't gonna sit here and dress it up pretty for you. I went down the stairs. "I'm gonna open these locks," I said, standing in front of that cold metal door. "But you're gonna answer me one more question first. And if the answer sounds like a lie, I swear on my mama's grave I will leave you down here till the rapture."
Anything. Ask me anything, friend.
There was something new underneath the words now. Something eager. Something that had been waiting a long, long time and could about taste the air on the other side of that door. "What's behind you? What's in that room besides you?"
Bones. His and a couple others. I didn't put them there, mind you. Found this place already full of the dead, same as you found it. Been keeping them company, is all.
Now that right there should have sent me running back up them stairs two at a time, hollering the whole way. It didn't, because by then, something had shifted loose in me. Some exhausted, storm-soaked, half-frozen part of my brain that had decided it needed to see the truth for itself instead of trusting a dead man's handwriting or a stranger's honeyed voice. Told myself I was being brave about it. I know better now. I was just being a fool with something to prove to nobody in particular. I undid the first bolt. It screeched, rust flaking off in orange curls onto my numb fingers.
Thank you.
Second bolt.
You have no idea how long I've been waiting on someone kind enough to listen.
I froze with my hand on the third bolt. Because that word, kind, same exact word from the journal. Somebody dumb enough or kind enough to let it out. I stepped back so fast I about fell over them mason jar shards behind me. "No," I said. "No, sir, I ain't doing this." Whatever gentleness that voice had been wearing dropped clean off, like a mask coming unglued from a face.
You already opened 2. You do not get to decide that you're done.
The third bolt, the one I hadn't even touched, slid open on its own with a shriek of metal that about stopped my heart outright. I bolted for the stairs. Behind me, that last lock tore clean out of the rotten frame with a crack like a shotgun going off, and the door swung wide. And something came out of that dark that no journal, no warning, no amount of church-going could have prepared a man for. It didn't have a shape so much as a rude suggestion of one. Limbs too long, bending wrong at the joints, folding forward on itself like it hadn't decided yet which direction was supposed to be up. Skin the color of meat left too long in standing water, glistening, split in places to show something moving underneath that weren't muscle and weren't bone. And the face, Lord, the face kept shifting, flipping through a stack of stolen photographs looking for the one that had hurt me worst. And for one horrible second, it wore my own face back at me. My own mouth stretched into a grin too wide to belong to any living man. And it was laughing.
You fool.
I did not look back a second time. I hit them stairs at a dead sprint, and something behind me moved fast. Too fast, joints clicking wet against stone as it scrambled up the wall like the ceiling meant nothing to it whatsoever. I burst into the kitchen just as a hand, if you could even call it that, 3 fingers too many, each one ending in something like a fishhook, closed around my ankle and yanked me clean off my feet. I hit them rotten floorboards hard, breath punched out of me entire, and twisted onto my back just in time to watch that thing drag itself up out of the stairwell mouth splitting wider than any jaw had business going, rows of teeth stacked back into a throat that looked like it went on forever, like Sunday service with no end in sight. I kicked. Didn't decide to, just did. My boot caught it somewhere in that shifting mess of a face, and it recoiled with a shriek that cracked glass somewhere upstairs. And in that half a second, I scrambled free and threw myself at the front door.
Wait, please! Don't leave me here alone again! I'm still hungry.
It hit the frame behind me hard enough the whole house groaned like an old man standing up too fast. I hit the porch and kept running, straight off the steps into mud and rain and dark. And I did not look back once. Not even when I heard something enormous slam against that front door, hard enough to splinter wood clean through. I ran till my legs quit on me, collapsed on the shoulder of the road next to my dead car, gasping, soaked clear through, shaking so hard my vision blurred at the edges. Storm broke about an hour before dawn. A trucker found me, sitting there in the gray, early light, arms wrapped around my knees, staring up at a hill where, come daylight, there weren't no house at all. Just a foundation, crumbled and grown over with weeds, and a black square where a cellar door might have stood once, near swallowed whole like it had been empty 100 years. He asked what happened to me. I told him my car broke down and I got turned around in the storm looking for help. Left out the rest. On account of some things, a man's better off keeping to himself. And on account of nobody believes the fella who says a house grew legs and walked off sometime between midnight and sunrise. I don't tell folks about the voice. Don't tell them what happens some nights now, right when I'm about to drift off, and I hear something behind my own front door. Soft, polite, asking real nice to be let in. I know better now. Every lock in this house stays shut. And when I can't sleep at night, that voice comes, uninvited.
Please, just let me in. I'm starving.